All this for one night in someone else's bed. The phone's shrill ring sliced through the Tuesday night silence at 11:47 p.m., a sound that instantly heralded a seismic shift in my life. Hospital calls at midnight rarely bring good tidings, especially when the call concerns your 19-year-old son. "Mr. Davis, this is Dr. Garcia at Riverside General. Your son, Ethan, has been admitted with serious injuries. You need to come immediately." The wrench slipped from my grasp, clattering onto the garage floor. Oil, a dark slick from the Chevy's undercarriage, stained the concrete as I fumbled for my keys. 23 years as a mechanical engineer had ingrained in me the understanding that when systems fail, they fail spectacularly, catastrophically. I never imagined my family would be that system. The drive to the hospital was a blur of flashing red lights and rising panic. Susan, my wife, should have been by my side, but she was working late again at the law firm. Again. The third time this week. At 45, she'd become consumed by her ambition to make partner, burning the midnight oil alongside her boss, Robert Miller. I burst through the emergency room doors, a whirlwind of frantic energy. "Ethan Davis," I gasped to the nearest nurse. "My son." She led me down a sterile corridor, the air thick with the antiseptic scent of disinfectant and the chilling undercurrent of despair. Ethan lay in bed 3, his left leg elevated in traction, his face a road map of bruises that sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. "Dad!" His voice, a mere rasp, was the same cracked whisper it had been since he was 12. "Jesus, Ethan, what happened?" He averted his gaze, then met my eyes, eyes that held a depth of understanding far beyond his 19 years. "I went home early from practice," he began, his voice barely audible. "Wanted to surprise you and Mom with my grades. I walked in and heard noises upstairs. Thought maybe you guys were..." He swallowed hard. "Your truck wasn't there, so I went up to check." The rhythmic beeping of the machines surrounding his bed pulsed relentlessly, a stark counterpoint to the unspoken truth I wasn't prepared to face. "I found Mom with Mr. Miller in your bed, Dad. In your bed." The words struck me with the force of a physical blow, a sledgehammer to the chest. 22 years of marriage. 22 years believing I knew the woman who shared my name, my home, my life. I started yelling, Ethan continued, his voice gaining strength, fueled by anger. Told him to get out. That's when his security guys showed up. Security guys. 2 big guys in suits. They said I was trespassing and needed to leave. When I refused, he gestured toward his leg. They threw me down the stairs. He said if I told anyone, they'd finish the job. The rage that consumed me was unlike anything I'd ever known, a molten fire spreading through my veins. My hands trembled as I gripped the bed rail. "Where are they now?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. "Probably still at the house," Ethan replied, his voice laced with a profound sadness. "Dad, I'm sorry. I should have." "You did nothing wrong," I said, my voice remarkably steady, controlled, and dangerously calm. I kissed his forehead, a silent promise of retribution. I left the hospital a changed man, irrevocably altered by what I had just learned. The drive home took 12 minutes. 12 minutes to meticulously plan my response, to formulate a course of action against the people who had shattered my family. My house appeared unchanged from the outside. The same white picket fence I'd painted last spring, the same rose bushes Susan had planted for our anniversary, the same mailbox proudly displaying the Davises in cheerful blue lettering. But inside, everything had irrevocably changed. I parked across the street, observing my home from a distance, a silent observer of the devastation within. The lights blazed upstairs. Robert's silver BMW sat in my driveway, a gleaming symbol of his triumph, a middle finger pointed directly at my heart. I had known Robert Miller for 3 years, ever since Susan had started working at Morrison, Miller, and Associates. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, impeccably groomed, wealthy. He drove luxury cars and wore suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage. At firm parties, I always felt like a clumsy grease monkey next to him. Now I understood why. I opened the glove compartment and retrieved the .38 I'd inherited from my father, unloaded, but they wouldn't know that. Sometimes the threat of violence is far more potent than violence itself. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. Why would they bother locking it? They owned everything now. My house, my wife, my dignity. I could hear voices from upstairs, Susan's laughter, breathy and smug, a sound I hadn't heard in years. The sound clenched my jaw. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my boots echoing heavily on the hardwood. The bedroom door stood ajar. They hadn't even bothered to close it. Susan saw me first. She was sitting up in bed, the sheet pulled to her chest, her dark hair tousled, her face drained of color the moment her eyes met mine, the sight of the weapon in my hand causing her to visibly recoil. "Tom, I can explain." "Shut up." Robert Miller languidly rolled over, exuding an air of supreme nonchalance. Even caught in flagrante delicto, he maintained an arrogant composure. "Tom, let's discuss this like civilized adults." Civilized? I let out a harsh, bitter laugh that echoed in the stunned silence of the room. "You broke my son's leg, you piece of crap." That was a misunderstanding. Ethan became violent. He's 19 years old. I stepped closer to the bed and finally a flicker of fear crossed Robert's face. He reached for his phone on the nightstand. "I wouldn't." I raised the weapon. "Where are your boys?" Susan whispered, her voice barely audible. "Tom, please let me explain." 22 years. My voice was steady, icy cold. 22 years. I've been faithful to you. Worked 60-hour weeks to pay for this house, for your law school, for everything you wanted. And this is how you repay me? "You don't understand," she sobbed, tears welling in her eyes. "Robert and we have something special. Something you and I never had." That cut deeper than finding them together. The casual dismissal of 2 decades of marriage reduced to something we never had. "Get dressed, both of you, and get out of my house." Robert was already scrambling for his pants. "Tom, I think we should discuss compensation." Compensation? The word was a guttural growl. "For what? For sleeping with my wife in my bed while your thugs put my son in the hospital? Now see here." I pulled the trigger, sending a round into the ceiling. Plaster rained down on the bed. Susan screamed. "I said get out!" They dressed quickly, their haste betraying their panic. Robert remained silent, his usual polished confidence shattered. Susan tried to grab some belongings, but I stopped her. "Leave it all. You don't deserve to take anything from this house." As they fled, I called after them, my voice low and menacing. "This isn't over. Not even close." Robert turned back, a spark of his arrogance returning now that he was safely dressed and escaping. "Tom, I understand you're upset, but if you threaten me again, I'll have to involve the police." I smiled, a chilling expression that visibly unnerved him. He actually took a step back. "Go ahead, call them. Tell them how you and your security team attacked my son. I'm sure they'd love to hear that story." They left without another word. I spent the rest of the night in the kitchen, fueled by coffee and a simmering rage, meticulously planning my next moves. By dawn, 3 pages of a legal pad were filled with notes, phone numbers, and a timeline that would have impressed Susan's law school professors. The first call came at 7:00 a.m. "Susan." "Tom, we need to talk." No, we don't. I'm coming over to get my things. Like heck you are. It's my house too. I have rights. Rights? You gave up your rights when you decided to sleep with your boss in our marriage bed. Don't be crude. Crude, lady. I haven't even started being crude yet. I hung up and unplugged the phone. The second call came on my cell at 8:30 a.m. Emily, my daughter, calling from her apartment across town. Dad, Mom called me crying. She said you threatened her with a weapon. Emily, 21, a senior at the local university studying communications, had always been closer to Susan than to me. Drawn to her mother's sophistication and social connections, I was just the guy who paid the bills. Your mother was in bed with her boss when your brother came home last night. Robert's security team broke Ethan's leg and put him in the hospital. Silence. Emily, you still there? I don't understand. Mom wouldn't. Your mother would and did. Ethan's at Riverside General if you want to see the proof. This is insane. There has to be an explanation. There is. Your mother's a cheating whore who chose Johnson over family. Dad, truth hurts, doesn't it? She hung up. The third call came at 10 a.m. Mike Chen, my best friend, who ran the auto repair shop where I'd worked part-time on weekends for the past 5 years. Tom, what the heck is going on? Susan called Sarah, crying about you going crazy with a weapon. Sarah was Mike's wife and Susan's closest friend. They'd been inseparable since college. Did she mention the part where I found her screwing Robert Miller in my bed? Come on, man. Susan wouldn't... Why does everyone keep saying that? Susan wouldn't cheat. Susan wouldn't lie. Susan wouldn't destroy our family. Well, guess what? Susan did. All of it. Look, I'm sure there's more to the story. There is. The more is that her boyfriend's thugs put my son in the hospital. Tom, you're not thinking straight. Maybe you should talk to someone. I'm thinking perfectly straight for the first time in years. I hung up on him too. By noon, I'd received 6 more calls from various friends and neighbors, all echoing the same fabricated narrative. Susan was portraying me as a deranged man, threatening her with a weapon, suffering a complete mental breakdown. She was skillfully manipulating the narrative just like the lawyer she was. That's when I decided to fight fire with fire. I drove to the hospital to check on Ethan. He was sitting up in bed, looking better, but his anger remained undiminished. How you feeling, son? Like I want to end someone. The doctors say I'll be on crutches for 6 weeks, maybe longer. We're going to make them pay for this. How? Mom's already been here crying about how you threatened her. She's got everyone believing you're the bad guy. I sat down in the uncomfortable hospital chair. Ethan, I need you to tell me exactly what happened last night. Every detail. He recounted the events again. His early return from baseball practice, the noises upstairs, discovering his mother and Miller, the ensuing confrontation, the arrival of the 2 men in suits, the assault, and Miller's phone call about cleaning up the mess. You get their names? One of them called the other Marcus. That's all I heard. I made a note. Anything else? Yeah. When they were dragging me out, I heard Mr. Miller on the phone. He was talking to someone about cleaning up the mess and making sure there were no loose ends. This wasn't just a simple case of infidelity. It was something far more sinister. Ethan, I need you to do something for me. I need you to write down everything that happened exactly as you told me. Date it, sign it, and have a nurse witness your signature. Why? Because your mother is trying to make me look like the crazy one. We need documentation. After leaving the hospital, I drove to my brother's house. Danny was a private investigator, retired from the police force after 20 years. If anyone could help me unearth dirt on Robert Miller, it was him. Tom, you look like heck, he said, opening the door. Feel like it too. I told him everything. Danny listened intently, taking notes in his ever-present small pad. So you want me to investigate Miller? I want you to find out everything. His business, his finances, his personal life. I want to know what he had for breakfast and how many times he takes a crap per day. Danny grinned. Now you're talking my language, but Tom, this is going to cost money. Good investigation work isn't cheap. How much? For what you're asking, probably $5,000, maybe more. I thought about the joint savings account, an account Susan was blissfully unaware I could access online. Do it. And Tom, be careful. If this guy's got professional security working for him, he's not just some small-time lawyer. There might be more going on here than a simple affair. That night, I sat in my empty house and did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a bottle of whiskey and got drunk. Not incapacitated, but sufficiently numbed to dull the searing pain of 22 years of marriage vanishing into smoke. The house felt different without Susan's belongings, larger, emptier, but somehow cleaner, as if an infection had been excised. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll end up like your son. This is your only warning. I stared at the message for a long time, then poured another drink. Let them come. The next morning, a knock at my door heralded the arrival of Mike and two other regulars from our weekly poker game, Steve Morrison and Paul Bradley. They looked uncomfortable, clearly on a mission they weren't eager to undertake. We need to talk, Mike said. I let them in and made coffee. These were men I'd known for years. Mike and I had been friends since high school. Steve was a contractor who'd helped me build my deck. Paul worked at the bank and had helped me secure my mortgage. Tom, Mike began, his voice laced with concern. We're worried about you. Worried how? Sarah talked to Susan yesterday. She's scared, man. Really scared. She should be. That's not helping, Steve interjected, his large frame conveying a sense of authority. Look, we all know marriage is tough. Heck, I've been divorced twice. But threatening your wife with a weapon? That's over the line. Did Susan mention why I had the weapon? She said you came home drunk and went crazy when you found her working late with her boss. I laughed, a humorless sound. Working late. Is that what she called it? Tom, Paul said softly, Susan's been a good friend to all our wives. She helped Sarah with her legal problems last year. She's helped all of us at one time or another. We can't just stand by and watch you destroy her. Destroy her? She destroyed our family. She's been screwing Robert Miller for God knows how long, and when my son caught them, Miller's thugs put him in the hospital. Come on, Steve said dismissively. Susan's not like that. She's a class act. A class act who sleeps with her boss in my bed while I'm working late to pay her bills. You're not listening, Mike said, standing up. We came here as friends, trying to help. But if you keep making these accusations, they're not accusations, they're facts. Prove it, Steve challenged, his voice hard. I looked at these three men I'd considered friends for years, men I'd helped, and realized they'd already chosen sides. Get out, I said quietly. Tom, Mike started. I said, get out, all of you. We're trying to help, Paul said. No, you're trying to protect Susan because she's got you all fooled, just like she had me fooled for 22 years. Steve stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. Maybe you should think about getting some help, professional help. Are you threatening me, Steve? I'm suggesting that a man who threatens his wife with a weapon might not be thinking clearly. That's when I lost it. I grabbed Steve by the shirt and slammed him against the wall. Coffee mugs crashed to the floor. My son is in the hospital with a broken leg because he caught his mother cheating. Her boyfriend's security team did that to a 19-year-old kid. And you three a-holes want to lecture me about thinking clearly? Mike and Paul grabbed my arms, trying to pull me away from Steve. Tom, let him go. You want proof? Call Ethan at the hospital. Ask him what happened. Ask him who broke his leg and why. We're not calling anyone, Steve said, straightening his shirt. We're leaving. And Tom, stay away from Susan. Stay away from all our families. You're not welcome anymore. They left without another word. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by shattered coffee mugs and the wreckage of friendships that had spanned decades. In less than 48 hours, I'd lost my wife, my friends, and my place in the community I'd called home for over 20 years. But I wasn't finished losing things yet. 3 days later, Danny called with his initial report. Tom, you need to sit down for this. I was already seated, nursing my third cup of coffee and my second hangover of the week. Robert Miller isn't just a lawyer. He's dirty as hell. His firm handles legal work for some very questionable businesses. Money laundering, probably. Maybe worse. What kind of businesses? The kind that need security consultants who aren't afraid to break a college kid's leg. That explained the thugs. There's more, Danny continued. Miller's been married 3 times. All 3 wives filed for divorce, citing adultery. 2 of them also filed restraining orders. Violent? Not physically, but he's got a pattern of using intimidation and financial pressure to control women. His first wife ended up broke and working as a waitress. His second wife moved out of state and won't talk to anyone about him. What about the third? That's where it gets interesting. Wife number 3, Patricia Miller, died in a car accident 6 months after filing for divorce. Single car crash late at night. No witnesses. A chill ran down my spine. You think? I don't think anything yet, but I'm looking into it. What else? Miller's got money problems, big ones. His firm's been losing clients rapidly, and there are rumors of missing funds from client accounts. Word is he's desperate. Desperate enough to marry a lawyer with a good reputation. Desperate enough to do whatever it takes to stay out of prison. After Danny hung up, I sat in my kitchen, realizing Susan wasn't merely having an affair. She was being manipulated, possibly even unknowingly complicit. But either way, she'd chosen Robert over her family. That afternoon, I drove to Emily's apartment. My daughter lived in a trendy complex near the university, the kind of place with a pool and a fitness center, a place I helped pay for. She answered the door in workout clothes, looking strikingly like her mother at that age. Beautiful, confident, and currently regarding me with the disdain one might reserve for a particularly stubborn stain. What do you want, Dad? To talk to my daughter about what? About how you've lost your mind and are stalking Mom? I pushed past her into the apartment, its modern furnishings looking both uncomfortable and obscenely expensive. Emily, sit down, please. I don't want to hear any more of your conspiracy theories. Did you visit your brother in the hospital? That stopped her. She sat down on the edge of her white leather couch. Yes. What did he tell you? He said... She paused, looking confused. He said he caught Mom with Mr. Miller. But Dad, that doesn't mean... It means exactly what it sounds like. Your mother has been having an affair. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. A choice she made every day for months, maybe years. Emily began to cry, the kind of tears that signal a shattering of one's worldview. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to destroy our family? I'm not destroying anything. Your mother already did that. She loves you. No, she doesn't. She hasn't loved me for years. I was just too stupid to see it. I sat down next to her, and for a fleeting moment, she was my little girl again, the one who used to climb onto my lap during childhood nightmares. Emily, I know this is hard, but I need you to understand something. Your mother made her choice. She chose Robert Miller over our family. And when your brother tried to defend our family, Miller's people put him in the hospital. That's not how Mom tells it. How does Mom tell it? She says Ethan got violent and they had to defend themselves. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken at the hospital. Ethan's bruises, his leg in traction, the medical report detailing his injuries. Does this look like self-defense to you? Emily stared at the photos, her face ashen. 2 grown men did this to your 19-year-old brother because he had the audacity to object to finding his mother in bed with another man. I can't believe this is happening. It's happening, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. What are you going to do? I'm going to make them pay. All of them. Dad, please don't do anything crazy. Crazy? I stood up. Emily, what's crazy is that your mother is telling everyone I'm the villain in this story. What's crazy is that my friends are choosing her side without even asking for my side. What's crazy is that a man can work his whole life to build something good and watch it all disappear because his wife decided she needed some excitement. I walked to the door, then turned back. I love you, Emily, but I need you to decide whose side you're on because there are sides now, whether we want them or not. I left her crying on her expensive couch. 2 weeks later, Danny had amassed enough evidence to bury Robert Miller and his associates. Bank records, photographs, witness statements, and most importantly, a link between Miller's security team and the death of his third wife. Tom, this is bigger than we thought, Danny said, spreading files across my kitchen table. Miller's been using his law firm to launder money for organized crime. The security team isn't just muscle, they're enforcers. What about Patricia Miller? She didn't die in an accident, it was homicide. I've got a witness who saw one of Miller's guys tampering with her car the day before the crash. Will the witness testify? For the right price and protection? Yeah. I stared at the evidence, the pieces of a vast conspiracy finally falling into place. This was it. This was how I could destroy Robert Miller completely. There's something else, Danny said. Susan's in deeper than you think. What do you mean? She's been helping Miller move money through client accounts. Either she's complicit or she's being set up to take the fall. Which, do you think? Based on everything I've witnessed, she knew precisely what she was doing. That hurt far more than the affair itself. Susan wasn't merely unfaithful, she was a criminal. What's the plan? I asked. We would hand over everything to the FBI. Miller would face charges of money laundering, conspiracy, and likely homicide. Susan would be charged as an accomplice. The security team would be prosecuted for assault and homicide. When? I pressed. I have a meeting with the federal prosecutor tomorrow morning, I replied. That night, sleep eluded me. My mind replayed memories of the woman I'd married 22 years prior, the young lawyer brimming with ambition and a radiant smile. At what point had she transformed into someone capable of assisting criminals in laundering money? When had she become someone who would choose a murderer over her own family? Perhaps she had always possessed those traits, and I had simply been too blinded by love to recognize them. At 6:00 a.m., my phone rang. It was Susan. Tom, we need to talk. No, we don't, I countered. Robert's been arrested. The FBI raided the firm this morning. A smile played on my lips. Danny worked swiftly. That's too bad, I said, feigning nonchalance. They're saying he killed his ex-wife. That's insane, Tom. Robert wouldn't hurt anyone, she protested. Tell that to Ethan, I retorted. This is all you're doing, isn't it? You couldn't handle losing me, so you concocted these lies. I didn't make anything up, I insisted. Your boyfriend is a criminal and a murderer, and based on the FBI's findings, so are you." Silence hung heavy on the line. Finally, she broke the silence. "Tom, I can explain. 22 years, Susan. 22 years I loved you, supported you, believed in you, and you threw it all away for a man who kills people," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're a criminal, a cheating, lying criminal who chose money and excitement over her family. If you testify against me, I'm going to do more than testify. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you really are." I hung up the phone, the finality of the action settling heavily within me. An hour later, Emily called. "Dad, I just saw the news. Mr. Miller was arrested for homicide, among other things. And Mom, she's next. I can't believe this is real." "Believe it, Dad. I'm sorry. I should have listened to you." "Yes, you should have. But you chose to believe your mother's lies instead of your father's truth. I was confused. You were disloyal, just like your mother. That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, a bitter sound. "Emily, nothing about this situation is fair, but it is justice." The FBI arrested Susan 3 days later. I watched from across the street as they led her away from her temporary apartment, her wrists bound in handcuffs. She seemed smaller, somehow diminished. The confident lawyer was gone, replaced by a frightened woman facing serious federal charges. The local news quickly picked up the story. Prominent attorney arrested in money laundering scheme. They used her law school graduation photo, the one where she looked so young and idealistic. Mike called that afternoon. "Tom, I owe you an apology." "Yes, you do." "We had no idea." "You had no idea because you didn't want to know. It was easier to believe I was crazy than to accept that your friend Susan was a criminal." "What can I do to make this right?" "Nothing. You made your choice." "Come on, man. We've been friends for 20 years. We were friends. Past tense." I hung up. Steve called an hour later with the same apology. Then Paul, then half a dozen other people who had blindly sided with Susan without bothering to hear my side of the story. I didn't accept any of their apologies. Emily came to see me that evening. She looked as though she'd been crying for days. "Dad, I'm so sorry." "I know you are. Can you forgive me?" I looked at my daughter, this beautiful young woman who had inherited her mother's striking features and, apparently, her mother's appalling tendency to abandon family when things got tough. "I can forgive you, Emily, but I can't forget, and I can't trust you." "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It means you're Susan's daughter, not mine. You made that choice when you chose her side." I was confused. "You were disloyal. There's a difference." She began to cry again. "I don't want to lose you, too." "You already lost me. The moment you chose to believe her lies over my truth, you lost me. That's not fair." "Life isn't fair, but consequences are real." She left without another word, leaving a gaping hole in my heart. 2 weeks later, Robert Miller was found dead in his jail cell. The official report stated suicide, but Danny harbored doubts. "Guys like Miller don't usually off themselves," he commented. "They make deals. Maybe he knew there was no deal good enough? Maybe. Or maybe someone wanted to make sure he couldn't talk." Susan pleaded guilty to money laundering and conspiracy charges. She received an 8-year sentence in federal prison. Her law license was revoked. Her assets were seized. She lost everything, just as I had lost everything when I discovered her in bed with Robert Miller. The difference was that I rebuilt my life. She never would. 6 months later, I sold the house and moved to a small town 2 hours away. I started over with a new job, new friends, new routines. Ethan transferred to a university closer to me. His leg healed, and he made the baseball team. Emily attempted to visit once. I didn't answer the door. Mike, Steve, and Paul all reached out multiple times. I blocked their numbers. Susan wrote me letters from prison. I returned them unopened. The truth is, I could have forgiven the affair. People make mistakes. Marriages fail. Hearts change. I could have even forgiven losing my friends. They were manipulated by someone they trusted. But I couldn't forgive the choice to destroy our son to protect their secret. I couldn't forgive 22 years of lies, and I couldn't forgive the willingness of everyone around me to believe I was the villain in my own story. Some things are unforgivable. Some betrayals are final. Some reckonings are complete. I kept only one photograph from my old life. A picture of Ethan in his high school baseball uniform, smiling, young, and innocent, before he learned that his mother was a criminal and his father's friends were cowards. Sometimes I look at that photo and remember what it felt like to believe in people, to trust that the ones you love will choose you when it matters. But mostly, I don't look back at all. The past is a country I'll never visit again, and I'm fine with that. Justice isn't always pretty, but it's always final. Robert Miller died in jail. Susan Miller lost everything she valued. The friends who betrayed me lost a friendship they'll never replace. The daughter who chose sides lost a father who would have died for her. I lost a family that was built on lies. But I gained something more valuable. The knowledge that I'm stronger than I thought, more resilient than I imagined, and capable of surviving betrayals that would destroy weaker men. In the end, that's worth more than all the false friendships and criminal wives in the world. I won. They lost.